Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey, and let's read some books that I think I will hate. So these are some books that I have on my TBR shelf that I bought because they seem like staple books to me. So I bought them being like, I have to read these books because everyone else reads these books and I want to know what people think of them. But every time I have to make a TBR video, every time I think of vlog ideas, I'm never thinking of these books. And so today I was like, why not put all these books together and read them and see how I feel. So as I mentioned, these are three books that I feel like I see a lot. The first of which is the sequel to Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. Dune is a movie series that Denis Villeneuve has directed. It is pretty well loved, I would say, by society. Is it loved by me? No. If you watched oh my god, when did I film this video? Before the first Dune movie came out, me and my friend Danny over at Current Chapter did the Dune along where we were like, let's read this book for a month before the movie comes out because it's so hype. Everyone's going to enjoy this movie. I want to be a part of the hype for this series. Gave it a 1 star, not to spoil that video. I will leave a link up above if you would like to see my overall thoughts of the first Dune book. But there was one aspect of Dune that I sort of commended Frank Herbert for doing, which is writing from the voice of a Messiah character. And so I was like, okay, I could be intrigued to read the second one, even though I gave the first book a 1 star. So as mentioned, Dune Messiah is the second book in the Dune series. It follows Paul Atreides once again, as he has established himself as the emperor of the world. He's worshipped as this religious figure, and so Paul is sort of facing the consequences of becoming such a renowned figure in their world. The second book I decided to read for this vlog is very well known, I think, in the fantasy sphere and especially as well in the video game sphere. So when these two sort of hobbies intersect in a person, usually they have read The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This follows the Witcher named Geralt. Long training in a mysterious elixir have given Geralt these magical powers, and so he uses them against these nefarious monsters or slash villains who ravage the lands and attack the innocents. He's very much like a cowboy of sorts. And then the last book for this vlog is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This follows a character named Poppy who has been chosen to be the maiden. A maiden's life is very solitary. They are never to be touched, never to be seen, and never to be spoken to. But obviously, Poppy is a different maiden and she wants to enjoy a life outside of what is tasked to her. So I will take you back to Kelsey 1 week ago and we will get into the different books I read and we'll come back at the end. Hello, welcome to the first clip of this vlog. First of all, please ignore my eyes. I had an allergic reaction. I was just with my cousin's dog. Oh my god, she's beautiful. She's lovely. She's a chocolate Labrador. I love her so much, but she gives me so many allergies. Secondly, my son, as you could tell by my semi-whispering, is currently asleep. It is like 10:30 p.m. and I'm just now getting to opening this vlog, but it's because I just now got 1/3 of the way through Dune Messiah. And by this point, you know that this is a video where I'm reading books that I think I will hate. If you watched my Dune book, hi, welcome. It's been like 6 years that you've been here, so grateful to have you. But I did give Dune 1 star. I think only thing that I appreciated sort of Dune, and keep in mind, I never watched the movies ever, so I don't know what happens in this book at all. The thing that I semi-appreciated in the first Dune book was that Frank Herbert was trying to write a book where he's critiquing a person coming into power, and in this book, we're jumping right into Paul's reign of power, I guess. First of all, the fact that this main character's name is Paul, I can't take him seriously. I'm sorry, I can't take him seriously. Paul? I think I had the same commentary in the last vlog, but Paul? Anyways, so this is taking place 12 years after what occurred in the last book. Paul is sort of an emperor and he is in control of several lands, and the people under him have started this religious war. And so Paul is sort of the cause for this war, even though he doesn't necessarily want to have this war or partake in this war, but he's not at the same time taking responsibility because he's like, well, in order to stay in charge, I sort of have to do this war. So it's a very I think surface level discussion on an emperor being in charge of a wartime occurrence, and at the same time, in order to establish his rule and establish himself as like an emperor, I guess, forever, he has to have an heir. And Chani is not able to fulfill this. She is sort of facing these fertility issues, but of course, Frank Herbert doesn't like to dive into the minds of women, God forbid. So we don't actually know how Chani feels about not being able to satisfy this craving from Paul. Like, obviously, she's disappointed, but I'm sure there are more internal struggles that Chani is going through, but we'll never know. Paul's like political wife, Elena, whatever her name is like, I'll give you a child. And Paul's like, no, that's not what you're for. You're just a political wife. Chani is my true love. Which, okay, cool. We love a loyal man, but we'll see what happens, because obviously having an heir is very important to keeping power, right? In any sort of like political fantasy slash sci-fi, we understand that. And while this is going on, there seems to be two groups of people that want to take Paul and Paul's power down, and one of them has sent him like this golem figure, and I think it's called a golot or something like that. And this figure takes on the persona of Duncan Idaho, who died, first of all, Duncan Idaho, who died in the end of the last Dune book, and his body is sort of being used by another like creature, and this creature sort of reminds me more of like a golem. So like Duncan Idaho's body was like reused to create this creature, sort of like how golems are like clay figures that take on like a spirit. So that's sort of what I'm gathering it is. And he was created in order to take down Paul, but Paul is like able to ask him like, hey, why are you here? And he's like, to kill you, sir. Like, if your assassin's that fucking stupid, I don't get it. Or has to be that truthful. Like, you might as well have just not sent it, in my opinion. And then there's also someone called a face dancer who seems to be moving his way through the Freeman people of power, or the people in the resistance power. So that's what's going on like politically in here. Am I enjoying it? No. I'm trying to think positively of it. I'm trying to go into this like wanting to like it, but you know what? We'll see. So I'm going to continue, I guess, listening to this a little bit. Obviously, I'm really tired. I think I do need to take a Benadryl before bed, so that might make me sleepy. But until then, we will prevail. Sorry, the sound might not be too good because my microphone is in the other bedroom. I'm like 20 more pages than I was when I updated you last. But in these 20 pages, some crazy shit has happened. First of all, Paul's checking out his sister. He's like, damn, she's pretty hot. Can he relax? Like, you already have two wives. You don't need incest in there as well. And then also something that I mentioned last time in the first Dune book and happening here as well is that Frank Herbert like absolutely does not leave anything to the fucking imagination, man. It's so apparent. Like, we know everything. Like, the omniscient narrator is insane. Every thought is spoken. There's nothing that like I'm like, oh, that was a little suspicious. It doesn't matter if I thought it was a little suspicious, because Frank Herbert's gonna tell me in 2 sentences that it was a little suspicious. And then the third thing that annoyed me, this is all happening in 20 fucking pages. Third thing that happened just now, actually, which is what made me pick up my phone, is that it says, where is it? There's another emperor I want you to know in passing, a Hitler. He killed more than 6 million. Pretty good for those days. Why would someone 400 years in the future talk about Hitler? Okay, so I was editing this and I was like, you know what? We actually do know things that happened 400, 500 years ago. We know about like the medieval ages and whatnot. So I was like, okay, actually maybe Paul would know. So then I looked it up, and Dune actually takes place 22,000 years from present day. It only further reiterates the next point I'm going to make, but I'll say it again. Why would he be talking about Earth politics? Because they're not even on the same planet as this. Earth politics from 22,000 years in the past. You're telling me in 400 years? Not that I'm praying for this or wishing for this. You're telling me in 400 years that this mythical fucking universe that Frank Herbert has created, where this is not even Earth, why would Paul know about Hitler and think that Hitler killing 6 million people was good? And I know we're not supposed to technically like Paul, but again, like I said the last time I read Dune, if Paul is your main character and you don't make concrete arguments
against Paul, to critique Paul, you're not really making any sort of commentary. Why would Paul care about earth politics of 300 years in the past? I'm going to continue reading, but there's just so much more. Obviously, Frank Herbert has a fucking imagination. Do more.
Hello. So I did get another third of the way through Dune Messiah.
This, be nice.
I'm finding it.
It take you that long to find it?
It does.
What to say. I think there are some interesting conversations happening in here on the basis of religion. Obviously, as you can see, it's Dune Messiah, so there are going to be some conversations about Paul Atreides' role and that people are against him. They don't want him to be the emperor anymore. There is a very concrete plan to take down Paul. And we are told several times that there is this plan to take down Paul, but Paul is just so smart and he figures it out. While all of this is happening with Paul, his sister Aliyah is also a messiah of sorts. Like, people go to her for advice. She is working as an oracle. So both of the Atreides children, well, they're not really children anymore, but both of the Atreides, like, heirs, I guess, are these like messiah like figures in their own right. And so the freemen, or the people that are under them in the empire, are worried about their leadership, and if they were to have children, someone has been messing with Chani's fertility, and the children that she will have in this current pregnancy that she is in will either kill her, or the pregnancy won't go well, or something will happen, but she's going through with it anyways. At the same time, there is this plan to kill Paul, and it has to do with the random chapter that we had in the beginning of the novel concerning a freeman who was working to like take down Paul. And again, we are in this type of writing style from Frank Herbert that I absolutely despise. Paul is talking to Otri Yemi, I think is the character's name, but it is not actually that character. It is a face dancer who has taken on her face to send Paul Atreides on this mission to die, essentially. And Paul's like, that's not Otriemi. Like, I know her. This isn't her. This must be a face dancer. And the face dance, we're also in the face dancer's head. And the face dancer's like, something is not happening. He is not trusting me. I must do this. I must do that. I sort of just feel like I'm just sitting there in the middle of the two of them. And I know what's going on. And I just have to like listen to them lie to one another. And it's like, what's the freaking point? Like, what is the point? There's no mystery in the book. Like, if you know everything that is happening, what's the point of reading the book? I don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm reading facts, I guess, and there's like no sense of discovery in the plot. There's no like shock factor. Like, in my mind, Frank Herbert could have planted this idea of face dancers so that throughout the novel we're wondering who's a face dancer, who's not, these sort of things. And then this would have came more as a shock if Paul Atreides went on this mission with Otriemi and something happened. But alas, it did not. I don't know. I like that there's a discussion on like religion and government, and that like governments shouldn't uphold these religious values, and like Paul Atreides has kind of done so in order to like remain the emperor and have this jihad that has been used to start a war in his name, but in his name as a religious figure. So there is some discussions there that I think is really interesting. Sad, that this was written in the 1970s and Frank Herbert is talking about religious figures in governmental positions, and we're still sort of dealing with that today. Whatever. Again, those discussions are sort of bloated by this writing style that I find really annoying, by no sense of actual purpose in putting these ideas out. Because again, like I said, Paul is a more charming character, and we are living in Paul's mind, caring about Paul's friends and family. Are the readers picking up what Frank Herbert is putting down? I don't know. I'm feeling exactly the same as I did with the first Dune book. And like, that's sort of the point of this video, I guess, because like, I'm reading books that I think I will hate, and this is a book that I knew I would hate. I just wish that I was being surprised. And that's impossible for Frank Herbert. So I guess this is where we are. I have a couple of meetings today. I'm going to continue listening to this, and hopefully I want to start the next book today as well. We'll see what happens. Hello, welcome to the latest update. First things first, I just want to get out of the way that this video is definitely going to come late, and I'm trying not to care as much. I find since returning to work, I feel extremely overworked. I think part of it is going back to work full time. Before the pandemic. I was very unsuccessful in maintaining this channel while I was working because it was so difficult for me to read and provide updates in an eloquent manner. I'm becoming less scared of like just giving a casual update at work while I'm like listening to the audiobook while working. But I find myself like really struggling, I think, with the mental load. And obviously, I have a child as well. So there's just like multiple jobs I feel like I'm taking on. And then I think that these feelings are exacerbated because I don't know why I thought this video would be a good idea to read books that I think I will hate. But obviously, I'm not enjoying the books. So let's give an update for Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert, which I did in fact give a 1 star. I didn't expect anything. This is the book of the vlog where I knew pretty much that I was going to give it a low rating, but I was hoping that something more would come from this. One of my favorite reviews, as I look more to the rest of the series of Dune, is that someone said, I don't remember which book it was, but someone said, surprisingly, every book gets worse. And that made me laugh. I think the like idea of Dune is interesting, and I think I've mentioned this, but like I like that Frank Herbert wanted to tackle like a martyr type of leader, someone who gets this power and turns into like what would be a bad guy in someone else's story. And the power sort of corrupts him. He reminds me a little bit of Anakin. Chani is definitely giving Padme vibes. They both die after giving birth to twins. There's a lot here that's very similar, I think, in Anakin's story, but there's so much that I think Frank Herbert lacks in skill that doesn't allow for me, I know that's really harsh, but it doesn't allow for me to enjoy his books. There's a lot of misogyny in here, and I think of sci-fi and fantasy books that came out of this time, misogyny was sort of like a underlying rampant thing. Princess Irulan just wants to have a baby. Obviously, it's to solidify like her role in the universe, but I feel like when there's not a lot of strong female characters, it's like her only want in life is to have a child. Chani also, her only want in life is to have a child, and then she dies in childbirth. Spoilers. So I think that the underlying misogyny, especially with Chani's character, it's so bad that they had to give Zendaya more to do in the movies, right? So it's like there's something underlying here that I don't really like. As I mentioned, the writing isn't good enough to uphold, let's say, this misogyny. I'm going to get into like major spoilers just because like a lot of what annoyed me accumulates at the end. Paul and Chinese children are born. They are newborns. They are literally just lying there when something erupts because of Chinese death. Paul is reaching like a specific conflict with a certain individual, and through the eyes of his child, who, by the way, I learned in the future books becomes a worm. Anyways, through the eyes of that child, he is able to see himself. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention Paul's blind. Through the eyes of his child, he is able to see himself with his knife. And through viewing what he is doing through the eyes of his child, he's able to stab the person that he needs to kill. We're just going to sit with that. Weird incest side plot here. They don't do it, but there's a want by everyone around them. Paul seeing, knowing everything. I understand that he's a descendant of the Bene Gesserit, but it was just annoying. I don't like when characters are like the end all be all. I don't like a deus ex machina type of ending. So a lot of that accumulates in Paul, and that's part of the reason why I don't like Paul as a character, when it feels like nothing is happening for the entire plot of the book, and then in the last like 50 pages just suddenly everything happens. I don't know. And that adds to what I don't like the most about Frank Herbert's writing, which is that we are very much in an omnipresent vibe in the book. And so we know everything and we know everyone's thoughts. Characters are interacting with each other and we're reading their thoughts. So, for example, Duncan Idaho comes back as like a gula. And so they're both like sort of standing there. And Duncan Idaho's like, yeah, just be careful of me, bro. Like, I might kill you. And Paul's like, yeah, I know you're here to kill me, but like, tag along, my brethren. So it, like, where's the suspense? You know, anyways, not the book I thought I was going to enjoy in this vlog. I think I still felt a little bit hopeful. I think the idea, again, of following this like godlike martyr Jesus type of character was interesting, but alas, 'twas not. And then the next book that I am reading for this vlog is another book that I thought I would hate, and I think it goes along the same vibes, but I read to the 50% mark of this one because it is a short story collection, and this is The Last Switch by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is what created the Witcher video games, if you've ever played them. So this is meant to set up Geralt as a character as you move into the rest of the books, which is the rest of the series. But this in itself is a short story collection, which is why I just wanted to update you in the 50% mark, because there's nothing really happening plot-wise. We're really just reading different stories of Geralt's adventures. And it's okay. I think I like Geralt as a character in general, not only because he's hot, but because Geralt is a type of assassin character or a person in a position of somewhat power that doesn't want to utilize their power for murder or killing nefariously. It's really usually justified. And if not a justifiable act, he tries to go around it. So he'll never resort to murder in the first instance. He won't just perform the tasks of these missions because he is told to. He will always try to find a way out of murder. I think the stories are relatively interesting. I think everything going on is fine. The reason why I thought I wouldn't like this is I tend to be very wary of, first of all, older fantasy and sci-fi books, as we just saw with Dune. This was published originally in 1993, so that's around the time of these books that I don't tend to like 100% enjoy. I'm also very weary of these books because of misogyny, and so that is something that I'm keeping my eye out. But so far, I'm enjoying is a not the word that I would use, but I like listening to it for what it is, but I don't see it being like this end all be all book, especially because Geralt is like this manly man and like all the women love him. So we'll see how that continues. But I do want to finish this like within the next 2 hours if possible, so that I could start the last book for this vlog. We'll see. It wasn't a good idea, I think, to be reading books that I don't think I will like because I don't want to pick them up, but I'm trying. Hey. Hey. How y'all doing? So, we have not spoken since I updated at the middle point of The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, which I finished and I gave a 2 stars. There's 2 aspects to this reading. The first of which is that you can only really enjoy a short story collection so much, especially revolving around a main character, before they eventually start to feel repetitive and boring. I didn't go into this with any perceived knowledge or love for Geralt because I never played the Witcher games. I never watched the Witcher show, so I had no like love for him going into this, and it was hard for me to really appreciate his musings and random bouts of adventure, and also like the comedic style of this series as well. I didn't find the majority of these stories to be compelling in any way. They did feel like different fairy tale retellings, and there was a sprinkle of misogyny in each and every one of them for jokes and giggles, which I think now in this time of my life and this time of the world, I just can't really ignore these bouts of like misogyny for giggles. It's annoying. It's something that I don't appreciate in older fantasy. There were some stories where I felt compelled by it. I was like, oh, okay, something's happening here. And I appreciated how Geralt navigated the missions because he often chooses not to do violence, even though that is like sort of his role as a witcher. But then there would be some sort of sexual joke or rape joke. And it brought me back to reality, and it reminded me that this was written in 1993 and that nothing has changed in 1993. And it would just make me upset and angry. And so 2 stars for this because again, nothing was compelling enough to make me like sort of look past with my feminist goggles what was going on in here. And so my goal was to read 100 to 200 pages of From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout after I finished The Last Wish, and I was going to move on. We were going to have a grand old fun time with this romantasy. But as you can guess, I DNF'd it at chapter 7. So about 120 pages in, give or take. I just could not care less about this story. I was listening to this while I was at home and I was just cooking, and I was like, I don't give a shit actually at all about what's happening to Poppy. But I was pushing through. I was like, let me get to 1/3 at least, 200 pages in, so that I could come sit down, really give my formulated thoughts, push past the beginning of this book. But I was 125 pages in, and I was like, I can't tell you really anything special about Poppy as a main character. Like by that point, I might as well tell you, by that point in 125 pages in, we understand that Poppy is someone who is struggling with this identity of being a maiden, and she was sort of raised to be this way, but she goes on these bouts of adventures. And in the opening scene, we find her in this like pleasure brothel because she's like, oh wow, this is so weird and crazy to me. And I was like, you know what, Poppy, I don't care. And when I put it down a couple of days ago, I was like, okay, I think I might DNF it for this video, but keep it on my shelf so that I could read it in the future. But the reality is, outside of this specific video, there's no other video that I can think about where I would want to read this. Like, it's not something I ever want to pick up. When I even do romantasy vlogs, I don't reach for this one. The last romantasy vlog that I did, I ended up enjoying those books far more than this one. And the ones that I didn't enjoy in that video reminded me of this one. I'm sort of like, you know what? I think I'm just going to unhaul this one. I'm unhauling this one. I'm unhauling The Witcher. And I'm unhauling Dune Messiah. all 3 books for this video. I'm glad that I read them. I'm glad that I got them off my shelves. They're not looming over me as these books that I think I won't enjoy. And so I'm just like glazing past them with my eyeballs. Like, I'm glad that I tackled them off the TBR. This was a successful project in my mind, but were these successful reads? No. Did they put me in a reading slump? Potentially. Am I unhappy this week due to these books? Mayhaps. So in order to just throw these in my unhaul pile, let's go over my overall thoughts for this video. Surprisingly, I read and completed Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. It was a 1 star. I don't like his writing style. I don't like the series. I don't think it's good, but it was a book that I read in this vlog. As you just saw with The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, I gave this 2 stars. It was okay until the misogyny ran rampant. And then From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, DNF'd, page 125. Don't care. And that's it for this video. I'm sorry that this is a pretty lackluster vlog. I didn't want to push through From Blood and Ash and just give you like mediocre thoughts, because as I was recording this video, I was like, this is boring. This is boring. So I hope that you enjoyed anyways. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these books. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Let me know. I would love to still have a discussion on them. And if you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. Of course, given that social media still exists by the time you are watching this video, you can follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel, makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye.